The bar was louder than usual that evening, filled with the clinking of glasses, the low hum of conversations, and the faint sound of rain pattering against the glass windows of the high-rise rooftop lounge. It was the kind of place where powerful people came to hide from their pressure-filled lives. Businessmen with tired eyes, wealthy socialites who wore diamonds to mask loneliness, and those who came simply to disappear into a drink. But no one expected that on this ordinary evening, one moment, one accidental touch, would bring the entire room to a standstill. It began with a spilled drink, a messy collision, and a woman named Isabella Moore, whose life was about to change forever. Before we dive deeper into this emotional journey, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the healing power of understanding, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more heartfelt stories to life. Isabella was the kind of woman people admired from afar but hesitated to approach. Daughter of billionaire philanthropist Robert Moore, she had grown up with privilege, security, and expectations that felt heavier than the gold bracelets on her wrist. Yet beneath her polished exterior was a woman who felt painfully unseen. She had spent her whole life being defined by her family name. More investments, more foundation, more enterprises. But no one ever cared to ask who Isabella really was. Tonight, she had come to the rooftop bar not for attention, but to escape from an argument with her father about taking over the family foundation, a future she wasn't even sure she wanted. She carried her frustration like a storm inside her chest, and when she turned sharply to avoid bumping into a waiter, her heels slipped on a wet patch of the floor. Her drink flew from her hand, splashing onto the shirt of the man standing behind her. The amber liquid soaked into the white fabric instantly, exposing through the wet cloth the outline of a muscular chest and a tattoo hidden beneath. Isabella gasped out of instinct, stepping back in embarrassment, but the man simply exhaled in surprise, glancing down at the spreading stain as if it were nothing more than a raindrop. His name was Daniel Hayes, and though no one in the room knew his story, there was something about him that made people pause. He wasn't dressed like the typical wealthy crowd that filled the lounge. There was a simplicity about him, worn jeans, a clean but inexpensive watch, and a quietness that suggested a man who had weathered more storms than most. His broad shoulders and calm posture made him look unshakable, like someone who had survived things no one could guess from the outside. But what truly stood out was the way he reacted, not with anger, not with arrogance, but with a steady patience that seemed undeserved considering the mess splattered across him. As Isabella apologized and reached forward instinctively to help brush off his shirt, her hand accidentally hit his chest. The impact wasn't hard, but it was enough to make the soaked fabric shift and cling even closer to his skin, revealing the full shape of something inked underneath. Her eyes dropped automatically, and the instant she saw it, her breath caught in her throat. There, on his left pectoral muscle, was the detailed, fierce tattoo of a wolf's head, its eyes sharp, its expression both haunting and noble. It wasn't just a design. It was a story etched into skin, carrying a weight she could almost feel. The wolf looked alive, a symbol of survival, courage, and hidden wounds. But what truly shocked her, what made the bar fall silent, was not the tattoo itself but the truth she suddenly remembered. Wolves like that, those exact designs, they weren't random. They were used by a specific military unit, a unit so elite only a handful of people ever made it in. A unit her father once funded support programs for, a unit known for their secrecy, a unit known as the Navy SEALs. Isabella's voice trembled as she whispered, "Oh my God, but the words refused to form. Her shock was palpable, her eyes fixed on the ink as if she had stumbled upon a deeply buried truth. Daniel stiffened as the room quieted. A few patrons who had seen the tattoo widened their eyes as everything became clear. But Daniel said nothing. His jaw tightened, his gaze lowered, and an uncomfortable tension swept across his face, as if he wished he could hide the very skin he was in. Isabella wasn't prepared for what she had uncovered. She had not meant to reveal anything, not meant to expose a man who clearly preferred staying invisible. But fate had a way of forcing truths to the surface. And tonight, that truth had come in the shape of a tattoo. As she struggled to find her words, Daniel gently stepped back, his voice low, steady, and carrying a heaviness that hinted at years of pain. He explained that he wasn't active duty anymore. He had left the SEALs 2 years ago, not by choice, not by desire, but because life had pushed him into something even more difficult. He was a single father. His daughter, Lily, had just turned 6, a curious, bright-eyed child with a love for drawing flowers and telling stories about imaginary animals in the backyard. Her mother, Daniel's wife, had passed away from a sudden illness, leaving him to raise their daughter alone. The Navy had been his life, his identity, his purpose. But when Lily lost her mother, Daniel couldn't bear the thought of her losing her father too. So he walked away from the only world he knew. He traded night raids for bedtime stories, battlefield strategies for packing school lunches, and tactical missions for learning how to braid hair. He traded extraordinary danger for ordinary sacrifice. Isabella felt her heart twist painfully as he spoke. She had grown up surrounded by wealth, stability, and endless support, yet she had spent most of her life feeling lost. And here was a man who had faced immeasurable loss but still fought every day for the sake of the little girl who depended on him. His strength wasn't loud, it was quiet, rooted in devotion and resilience. As the room gradually returned to its normal noise, Isabella insisted on helping clean his shirt. Daniel tried to refuse, but there was something about her sincerity that made him pause. They sat at the bar together, and the staff brought napkins, clean water, and a fresh towel. The spilled drink seemed like a minor inconvenience now. What mattered was the unexpected connection forming between two wounded souls who had never expected to find comfort in each other. Isabella told him about her life. Not the glamorous version the media loved, but the truth. The pressure of being the daughter of a billionaire. The constant judgment, the loneliness hidden behind perfect photos and perfectly rehearsed smiles. Daniel listened silently, his expression softening as he realized that pain wore different clothes but still felt the same. The hours passed, and the rain outside grew heavier, tracing silver lines down the windows. Daniel spoke softly about Lily, the way she liked to run barefoot in the backyard, the way she hugged him every night as if afraid he would disappear, the way he sometimes cried quietly after she went to bed because he didn't know if he was doing enough. Isabella found herself smiling through tears, imagining the little girl who had no idea how strong her father truly was. For the first time in years, Isabella felt seen, not as a billionaire heiress, not as a symbol of wealth, but as a woman searching for meaning. And Daniel felt understood, not as a former soldier, not as a single dad struggling to stay afloat, but as a man longing for connection he never allowed himself to seek. As the evening neared its end, the bar had emptied, leaving only the soft glow of lights and the two of them sitting closer than before. Isabella found herself touching the edge of Daniel's tattoo again, this time gently, reverently. She whispered that the wolf didn't look fierce. It looked loyal, protective, a guardian. Daniel's eyes softened as he explained that wolves mate for life, protect their pack, and stand their ground even when alone. It reminded him of who he needed to be. The weight of his story, combined with the depth of hers, created a moment too real to ignore. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was sacred, filled with understanding that didn't require words. If this story has touched your heart so far, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your support helps us keep creating stories that uplift, heal, and inspire. Before leaving, Isabella asked Daniel something she never thought she'd ask a stranger. She asked if she could meet Lily someday, not out of curiosity, but because she wanted to understand the little girl who gave him strength. Daniel hesitated, then nodded slowly. It wasn't a promise, but it was a beginning. Just before the story ends, here's a special request. Please comment below, what would you have done if you were in Isabella's place? As Daniel walked out into the rain that night, soaked shirt clinging to his chest and a towel in his hand, he turned back one last time. Isabella met his gaze with a small, genuine smile. For the first time in a long time, she felt hope. And for the first time in even longer, Daniel felt something warm grow in the quiet corners of his heart, a reminder that even wounded wolves could find light again. And just like that, with bruised hearts and uncertain futures, two strangers walked away from a rooftop lounge forever changed. Not because of a spilled drink, not because of a tattoo, but because sometimes God brings the right people into our lives at exactly the moment we need them most, even when we don't realize we're searching. Their story wasn't finished, but tonight, it had finally begun.